in other words, sometimes it is being said encryption is equal to security, but we know that encryption is only a tool that helps in security, especially when it protects privacy, confidentiality, and integrity of the data. So overall, security is a much broader that covers all the areas from the network, systems, applications, databases, your backups for on-premise and cloud infrastructure. But encryption being the last line of defense, the control that acts on the data itself. And when we talk about encryption, it is the concept of encryption keys that is critical, which is shared with the security user to access to have access the system or to the resources and the data. So it is very important to store and protect the keys in order to avoid their availability and manage the keys as well. So from the time they are created to the time they are distributed, rotated, and consumed in the entire life cycle. So I will touch upon these going forward. But before that, let me come to some of the emerging trends that you would be witnessing, and that is where we see cloud adoptions on rise. And organizations are now looking in terms of starting their journey. Some are already cloud-born organizations in today's context in the last 3 to 4 years, and because of the benefits, the advantages they begin. Then with that, we are seeing a lot more stringent measures from the regulatory mandate, the regulatory institutions coming in that you need to abide certain guidelines, certain aspects to ensure that the data security measures are in place. And then we witness these new data breach incidents, and it has become a new norm. I would say every second day, third day, you hear some event or incident of a data breaches, either from form of a ransomware attack or through some form where the data has been leaked out and is available for misuse related to that. So what I want to bring is that we all usually when we discuss, they say we have a plan, but unless you get punched in the face, things go for a toss. So I use this very often to say that let's discuss what happens if the plan fails when you get punched in the face. Are you ready for that moment? Are you ready for that aspect? And that is where I think it brings me to the next slide, which talks about how the costs for the data breaches have really gone up. And if you see in current parlance, the average cost for data breach for Indian companies, so in 2021 has been around 16.5 crores. This is a study from IBM that I'm referring to, and it has gone up almost 20% close to from year 2020, and it's growing at significant pace. And that brings me to wonder that, okay, what's the impact of these breaches? Frankly speaking, all these breaches mostly results in exposing the PII data that is being stored within the organizations. And those PII data like email, passwords, your other sensitive data in some cases, and they are actually published into dark webs forums where they are again misused in so many other kind of attacks like phishing or and so on. So that's where you need to really come in and check these kind of incidences from happening. And if an individual loses some data by his mistake, he can be pardoned. But if an organization which is custodian of this sensitive data and the breaches happen from there, you know it's the penalization that often comes into there rather than being pardoned. And that's where now the focus has to be very significant in terms of securing the PII data. So what are the typical data breach targets that we have seen happening in terms of the sought after by the attackers currently? Primarily, these are the relevant data types that need to ensure adequate controls that are being put upon. They are PII data, which includes, needless to say, all your Aadhaar number, your PAN number, your births, any data that relates with your personal identification, your financial information, your health information, your information related to the documentation on your company's business practices, and very critical on the IT security data, primarily the usernames, the password, the encryption keys, the topology diagram. I mean, all these equivalent to sensitive data, and one needs to ensure that they are adequately protected. So typically, we have seen that the main causes for the data breaches primarily has been that there has been an identity theft that has mostly resulted, and then 95% has been because it has been unencrypted. Now, so that becomes a key area to think about in terms of that. Why was, if we would have really brought a control of encryption in place, at least we would have contained significant data breach damages that comes with their organizations. And that brings to a very key question that we need to understand when we consider as an encryption as a technology for data protection, is that which data needs encryption? Then the second question that logically comes in for the stakeholders to look at it, that where can I run this encryption process, using which components, and how does it cost in terms of the resource usage? And is it necessary to change the applications when you're implementing implementation? And if yes, what type of changes? Now, this is something which organizations struggle because nobody wants to change the applications, and that's true in mostly sense. When you have invested, you need to find a solution that works seamlessly without changing your application. That's where I think a particular type of encryption, which is called transparent encryption or pervasive encryption, that comes as a solution to address all these concerns. And then very important piece is that while we are discussing so much, who is responsible for this entire encryption management process? So one thing you have to do is to understand also that at what layer you want to encrypt the data, whether it is data at rest, data in use, or data in motion. Now, for data in motion, if you see the reference, it's in the networks. We already have an adoption of encryption in SSL and TLS protocols. But regarding data at rest is where we have seen the news. And that's where, again, I bring this discussion when often engaged with customers, that you need to identify what would be the most effective area to intervene when we are considering encryption as a technology to meet both your structured data, your unstructured data, and gives you a broader control in terms of meeting the security objectives for your organization. So the organizations that are currently looking today are primarily to address requirements for data at rest encryption, data in motion encryption. Then very important piece that comes with encryption is how do we manage these encryption keys? Success of encryption lies in managing the encryption keys. If the encryption keys are easily accessible, or if they are easily being leaked out, then the whole purpose of protection using encryption is failure. So you need to design a proper key encryption key management process, a system, and then define an access around it. Who is the whitelisted user getting access to the encryption keys? Who are the business users getting access to these keys? And when you're moving workload in cloud, how you can manage these encryption keys in cloud? And that becomes very significant, which I would touch upon in subsequent cloud when I also bring upon what are the security concerns in cloud. So clouds. When cloud is also organizations are taking significant steps in moving their significant workloads in cloud, the cloud service providers have come up with something called shared service responsibility framework, where they clearly define in terms of accountability and responsibility that lies with service provider, with the user. And that's where it's very clear whether you take an approach of infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, the control of data lies with the customer, the user, not with the cloud service provider. So that brings a very second thought that organizations are looking is that while security of the cloud is responsibility for the cloud service provider, security in the cloud is where you need to have a control on it. And when you're looking at journey of moving your data in cloud, typically you need to understand how do you maintain those security controls in the cloud? How would you be able to leverage or see whether the cloud service provider who are also giving you a native encryption or the key management solution, but from data privacy mandate, the control needs to be you, not with the cloud user, because in theory, any of the privileged user or super admins of the cloud service provider can always go and look into your data, which is residing even in encrypted using native encryption by cloud service provider, which no organizations would like. So a very important concept that comes in here, which is called decoupling of keys, which means that the encryption keys has to be segregated and separately managed from the application owners, and that's which is a key message or a success behind the encryption to really be successful in implementation within the organization. So other key concern areas, I would say the risk areas from cloud perspective, that cloud service provider don't give you encryption key visibility, as I called it out. Second is data loss, as insufficient DR or authorization controls would be there, which may result in terms of negligence of deletion of keys and your data goes for a toss. Third is that no organization today wants to get aligned into a lock-in situation that, okay, I'm binding to only this specific cloud service provider. I want to go and be free to with multi-cloud kind of environment. And that's where, again, the organizations want to explore how do we overcome this challenge. Then compliances comes in big way, which we will see in the subsequent slides. And then the very important piece is the key lifecycle management, especially when you are looking at multi-cloud subscriptions. The heterogeneous keys are spread across multiple subscriptions. Managing them from some manually becomes a pain and is error prone, and you won't want to get into those complications, which lessens out your efficiency as well. And very significant, we all have seen that organizations historically have rolled out a lot of single product for respective use cases on data protection or using the native encryptions. But over a period of time, there has been so much of independent or silo-based, I would say, initiatives, which creates a blind spot or a gap into the overall, I would say, the implementation, and managing them becomes very complex, inefficient, and now has become expensive. So there is a need to move away from silo-based approach to a holistic platform-based approach that enables you and creates the capability to meet the growing use cases, and you don't need to go back and forth in investing on your security, data security measures as your use cases or the needs arises. So Cloud Security Alliance is a third party which gives advices, and they very categorically have said that encryption keys has to be maintained by cloud user and not leave it with cloud service provider. So those of you who are consuming any of your cloud SaaS based kind of solutions in your environment, which is holding PII data, you need to definitely look at the controls that you have with respect to what the cloud service provider is currently looking at. So some of the study that Thales has done, and we have published a report. I will share the copy of detailed the report on the security, and where I am referring is that the breaches and audit issues are very common in cloud environment based on our survey interacting with the customers globally. And we have seen that only 35% are using their own encryption. Remaining 55% are using the cloud provider's encryption. So encryption as a tool, as I said, is good, but how you manage the encryption keys become very critical. And this is where I think we would need to understand that you need to have implement a robust key management system. And if you want to use different keys for different applications, or say scheduling the replacement with rotation and distributing them from a center point to a target system, automatically you need to have a very, very defined encryption key management system in place. So that brings me to some of the mandates from regulators. People from banks are aware that RBI had come up long time back with a guidance saying that encryption and key management system are one of the very effective controls in data protection, which needs to be done for data at rest. So referring and today organizations are now going as a guidance to it, which earlier was mostly kind of met through a tick mark kind of an approach, but now this has become really serious when the audits and especially the measures are being evaluated. Similarly, for SEBI, which is another regulator, they even mentioned the same, that you need to have this data encrypted for rest and in motion, and you need to have a robust encryption key management system. The reason I am bringing these guidelines, saying that regulators have also now enforced upon that if you have not invested in these controls, you need to have it. Now it's a must, rather than just a wish that you should be looking at it. IDRBT had published a long time back saying that when you are moving a workload in cloud, the control of the encryption keys lies with the user, and that's where the approach called bring your own keys, which would be very significant, and a lot of organizations that are working today have adopted this approach in terms of protecting the sensitive data in the cloud environment by owning having the ownership of those encryption keys with them rather than leaving it with the service provider. So these are some of the current enforcing regulators compliance mandates that we see in existence today. And one common thing is that majority of these compliance measures talk about three initiatives or our three denominators to have in organization, which is around encryption, form of tokenization, define and access control around privileged users, and have a robust and secure key management system. And this helps you to meet all the current as well as the upcoming regulatory mandates, especially around data protection. So when you are looking at seriously on data protection, I would say you need to look into these three denominators that have to be in place within your IT infrastructure. So that brings me to ask a very fundamental question or approach that you should look at it, that where is all this sensitive PI data that is currently being there in your organization, how it is being used, and how do you safeguard your data from the breaches or unauthorized access. I mean, these are the primarily, I would worry, baby steps that one has to, consider designing data security measures within the organization. And a very critical piece that you need to understand is that you need to protect your data and you need to decouple keys from the data. So I talked about it. It is just reinforcing the same measure that if you are not protecting the encryption keys, encryption is just not only going to help you. So very important thing is that, OK, there is nothing called foolproof security. And in spite of implementing all those fancy defense measures, please understand that you need to consider that you may get breached one day. If not today, maybe in future. So why not work? As there is a saying that goes, prevention is better than cure. So why don't have this preventive measure in place as a first step? And begin with this thinking that breaches will happen and you will get breached. So what has to be done? That is where we as an organization go and suggest or recommend that please understand that you need to say that we have a breach acceptance mechanism in place where we accept that, OK, the breach can be possible. And then we apply controls in protecting what matters most, and that's where data has become the new perimeter for most of the organizations, and we need to ensure controls around the data and these applications, and that will help you to secure the breach. So typically, you need to encrypt all this sensitive data. You need to have a complete encryption key management system and processes in it. And based on that, you need to manage and control this access in terms of whitelisting the user-wise, department-wise, have a key management policy in place, which is very effective in terms of securing the breach as a measure in data protection initiative. So these are the three primary steps that help you to secure against any data breach incidents that happen. Talking about ransomware, actually ransomware is again encryption. It's just a rogue encryption. So if a bad encryption is coming, you can have it with a good encryption in place, then the effect of ransomware would actually be nullified. So that's where we have found a lot of interest from the organizations in really having this good encryption in place for the first step to meet the bad encryption. So as I talked about the various encryption layers, that's where Thales as an organization contributes significantly in terms of helping you to decide which would be the perfect or the right level of encryption to meet your objectives across the organizations. And typically we have seen that file-based encryption helps to almost cater 90% of the requirements for both structured and unstructured data, which we have fulfilled with a lot of leading organizations from across the globe in terms of helping them to meet the compliance mandates and the security objectives. So this is where I would like to bring these top 3 questions that are very relevant for you to consider, and answers to these help you to really understand the approach that we are actually focusing to start the journey on data protection for the customers being engaged with us. That you need to understand how you are achieving the separation of duties in the encryption that is being implemented. How have you designed the encryption key management policy and encryption key management system? How are you even finalizing a key management system? What is the way to understand which key management system would really fit your requirement? So these are the areas we kind of help our customers and leaders to understand and take them to the journey to be very clear in terms of what would really be suited for you as an organization, rather than just making it a bit generic in terms of approach. And then with cloud, I think, yes, how are you looking at the approach of bring your own key versus bring your own encryption? I will just talk about bring your own key and bring your own encryption in the subsequent slide as well before I wrap up the session. So this brings me one of the very key measures that we often implemented, and as I called it out, the encryption at file level, primarily where as an organization we provide the encryption software that works at the file level, and with that, this helps you to acquire policies and encryption keys from the key manager, which we call, which is either a virtual or a physical appliance. And from the key manager, the administrators can manage thousands of encryption softwares across the organization. So based on the policies that you establish, this encryption agent or the software can either grant or deny any user's request, or it can control which activities the user can conduct. So for example, an administrator could gain access to a database server for managing backups, but he still will not get access to sensitive data residing on that server in clear form. So this is a very critical, I would say, use case that we have seen often auditors saying that sysadmin should not see the PII data. So that's and on the other hand, an authorized user working with an approved application or process will be able to get clear text access without experiencing any change in the normal processes. So this software, I mean, this agent can be deployed anywhere where you have a physical or a virtual server. It could be Windows, Unix, Linux, your cloud environment, your big data, and the database can be on a file system or raw volume. So this is how this encryption works transparently without bringing any significant IT operations changes from the application side, from process side in your organization. So the key technologies that today are considered in data protection, primarily on PII data, is understanding where to begin your journey from, which is from the data discovery and classification. Know where your sensitive data is, and then classify it based on the policies which within the organization that makes them either sensitive, public, or confident. And once you have done this, you want to get into the data risk mitigation by using the technologies like encryption, which is very significant in security. And if it's in cloud, then you go ahead for bring your own keys, especially in the SaaS environment. And if it is an infrastructure as a service, then you take your own encryption if it is hosting a sensitive PI data. Tokenization, we have seen, and a lot of mandates have come recently, which is a form of encryption as well in terms of helping you to meet the objective. Third one is the data masking, which again becomes very critical to help to safeguard the PI data from seen by the respective users. And all these approaches are futile if you don't have an encryption key management system in place. So typically the journey which I have seen through from early days has now moved from perimeter to a layered security, has now become a data-centric security. And this is where the platform where Thales brings, which is called the next generation data security platform called Cypher Trust, where heart of this platform is the key management solution, which comes in either virtual or hardware appliance form factor. And it has respective modules that are integrated with this, which helps you to start your journey in data protection, either from the data discovery and classification piece to begin with, or directly help you to do the encryption of data residing in your file folder, in your databases, even in your applications, or if it's in the cloud, it is managing the encryption keys in the cloud. So the same platform meets all these respective use cases within the organization. So a typical example that I want to touch upon from respect to understanding of bring your own key and bring your own encryption is that while cloud service provider give you native encryption, there are a lot of significant advantage when you go for an approach of bring your own keys or bring your own encryption. And typically the use cases decide which approach. If it's a SaaS application which is having the PI data, it will be your bring your own key. But if you are having infrastructure as a service model in the cloud environment and that's hosting a sensitive data, then it will be mostly bring your own encryption directly, which would help you to safeguard and meet your security objectives. So at the end, what is that key differentiator in the key management that really helps, and how it is
wait.
Yeah,
just one more minute. We are running out of time.
Okay, so I think I'm almost in wrap up
awesome.
mode. I will just touch upon. So this slide just talks about what is that automated key management gives you, right from creating to all these green areas are the automated steps that a key management system gives you for managing keys in cloud. Whereas if you go for a manual, you can see all these red areas are the areas which are very intensive, labor intensive and error prone, and chances of mistakes are very high. And that's where I think the automated key management measures have become significant. So I think I will just come to the last slide, which is in terms of the use cases that organizations have implemented. And this is where some of you might have already done certain initiatives. Some of you might be looking at these initiatives to meet data at rest or to manage your encryption keys in cloud or address data in motion. So we can discuss definitely or a deep dive into these use cases in terms of how this is being done or how this is being met. And if these are your concerns, feel free to reach out to me separately. This is the typical architecture that we have implemented, which helps to meet all these objectives that I called out in terms of a uniform platform that meets both the data security measures for data at rest encryption in cloud and on-premise. So overall, if you see, the key challenges in data protection are to understand where sensitive data is, then have a protection mechanism around that data and meet the compliance mandate. So with this, I think I would just come to the concluding slide, where the advantage from the Thales that comes in is primarily offering you a single platform rather than a silo-based technology solution to meet the data security requirements across your databases, across your applications, across your files, across your cloud environment. And the key measures today is that the overall strategy for cybersecurity is to start from the inside out and having a very robust encryption key management system in place. And as I said, encryption help prevents you against the rising ransomware attacks and protects from insider threat. So that role becomes very critical when you are looking in data protection, data security measures. So that brings me to the concluding slide. Sorry, I had to just rush up with the time constraint. I would have got lost and continued for another hour in terms of getting into the respective use cases. With this, I think I leave the forum back to you, and any questions, any kind of queries you have, feel free to call it up.
With one of the amazing sessions that I have recently attended. Seriously, kudos to you. Very beautifully delivered. You are an ocean when it comes to data security from a knowledge perspective. So I think we should plan a 4-hour workshop just on data security, right? I was talking to Vyas and he mentioned that, OK, you will get carried away because you are so passionate about it. So I had to intervene in between. But yeah, overall, excellent session.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Great. Let's open for Q&A, guys. Raise your hand. I will unmute you and then you can ask your question. I see there was one hand raised by Amit. I don't see it raised now. So guys, if you want to ask any question, just raise your hand. I will unmute you. OK, Amit was, now it's again gone. There are some questions on the chat, where if you want to take a look. After, I think there are a lot of good session comments coming in. There was one question from Mr. Vivek. Vivek, do you want to ask live? Should I unmute you? OK, Amit has raised hand again. I am going to unmute him. OK, Manoj, go ahead and ask your question. Mr. Biju, go ahead, ask. So I've unmuted both of you. Manoj, you go first, ask your question. Biju, you can ask. If you can just unmute yourself and ask your question.
In fact, Vikas, what I would also suggest and would love to do is that maybe you can send across all these questions. If some of them are not able to ask, I will jot down the answers to all these questions and circulate it to everyone who have attended it for benefit of us.
So let's do this. A lot of people are asking for slides because slides are so beautiful. So we will compile all these questions. I will send you the questions. You draft the answers. Send me answers and slides both. We will upload recording, slides and Q&A on our website. OK, let's do that. And then Biju, sure. Biju, go ahead.
Yeah.
I see you unmuted. So go ahead, ask your question.
Yeah, thank you, Vikas. Thank you, Prakash. It was a very good presentation. So just question regarding the initial slides on the challenge one slide. So you had mentioned various questions like, how do I maintain security? How do I manage my audits? So in that particular one point, I would like to get more clarity. So how do I manage my audit? So can you please explain the best practices and also the most effective way?
So definitely, sir, the best practice, Biju from audit is to understand the objections which are around, especially audits are done against certain established guideline practices and they evaluate it. And the use cases which I called it out was based on the observations from audit. The one observation which they said is that what are the controls which restricts the access of other users who are not supposed to see the PII data, say system admin. Now that is where they wanted to know what can be done, and that's where this specific control which helped to safeguard the business users to see the data, but not the data admins to see the PII data in test while they are continuing to do the routine operations that are required. So audits respective to the if you are respective to the certain compliance mandates, certain security practices from the NIST framework. If that's something that you consider, it depends on the organization's overall approach in terms of what is that mandate that you are going to achieve. From data breach perspective, this is anyway mandatory. I mean, if you have to avoid data breaches in any kind of ransomware attack, you need to have a preventive approach in place. So that's Biju immediately come to my mind. I can have a detailed deep dive with the technical solutions specialist who have went ahead, looked at the audits pieces and then said that these are the controls that you need to also bring in. So if that works for you, I would be more than happy to connect separately.
Yeah,
Vikas, if I may ask.
Sure, sir.
Yeah, Amit, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks for such a wonderful session, Mr. Ved Prakash. My query is pretty simple. Within a cloud, most of the organization these days, as you have said initially in your presentation, are moving to the cloud. And within a cloud, we have generally 4 options of managing the keys. One is primarily using the external HSM. Then you have a virtual appliance and software. Then you have a cloud service provider who are actually providing the separate key containers for private key encryption. And also you have a hybrid model. I just wanted to understand, what is a key differentiator your solution has? Because, in order to convince the management, we need to understand what is a key differentiator you have, which is not available within the cloud model of key management.
Absolutely. Very, very relevant questions. And one of the key reason that some of the largest financial institutes are really considered in their evaluation on this piece when they implemented the Thales platform. So as you rightly called out, cloud service providers have offer you a native data at rest encryption and key management. But when it comes to the data protection mandate, it requires that the keys be stored and managed by the customers. Now, the cloud service providers fulfill this requirement by enabling customer key control functionality, which allows you for the separation, creation, having the ownership and control, including revocation of the encryption keys. So that's where this bring your own key approach comes in, which is there enabled by cloud service providers. So all cloud service provider enable this to go for a mechanism that you own the control rather than coming it with the cloud service provider. Now, this purely is discussed with respect to a particular fulfillment or ask from security team that want to bring this controls in. Otherwise, as you rightly said, if there is not a very sensitive PII data residing in, cloud service providers have these 3 or 4 way of helping you out in terms of meeting the certain basic hygiene around data protection. And if you are really interested, Manojji, to understand the key differentiators from technical point of view, I would definitely connect and bring up those insiders to you. So that would help you to know from the technicals. I do not want to get into deep dive technical at this point of time, but I leave this for you to really see if that is that you are looking at. I can come with a technical person to assist you in terms of each differentiates versus all the 4 options that you called it out, from bring your own key to bring your own encryption to hold your own keys to have your own key management system with respect to your encryption key management provided by the cloud service provider.
Sure.
Awesome.
Thank
Great,
you.
great
Thank you,
question,
Mr.
Amit bhai.
Prakash. Thank
Great.
you.
No, indeed, a
Let's,
great question. Indeed, a very good question.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's a very significant question. I'm glad it striked to him, and that's really pertinent to the discussion I had done.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Let's take a couple of more questions. It's already 11:51. Manojji, can you try to unmute yourself now? I made you presenter. Going once, going twice. Manish bhai, Manish Sahu, go ahead, ask your question.
Hello. Thanks, Vikas.
Okay, yeah.
Am
Go
I
ahead.
audible?
Sorry,
No, this is
Manojji has
Manish.
unmuted himself. Manojji, go ahead. Quick question and quick answer. Wait, please.
Yeah.
Thanks. It was a nice session. I just want to understand this encryption, how it will work during the data in transit. When data is in transit, how it can be encrypted.
So these are the use cases. Typically, one large organization have in how it works. If you want to get into the technical understanding, let me park it off for a separate discussion. Just to give you a quick understanding of one use case which recently organization discussed, where they're moving this data from on-premise infrastructure to cloud environment in the data lake. And they wanted to encrypt this data in transit in that process. And that's where this is encryption for data in motion helped them to meet this objective. If that is what you are looking at, how it happens, I have the technology solution to meet this task. I can discuss it separately with you.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Manish Sahu bhai, go ahead. Short question and short answer, please.
Sure. Thanks, Vikas. Prakash, I believe you offer a appliance-based network encryptor device, right? So, I mean, if I have to compare that with the VPN encryption, which we usually enable it through VPN concentrators or engine firewalls. So, what USP does your solution bring in there?
Absolutely. So there is a significant, I would say, difference at the layer to which we work with respect to the layers at which the VPN connectivity or the IP6 connectivity that you're talking about. I think it will be a bit technical for me to talk about. I would like this to be taken up by the team who are specialists in addressing this question. So I have noted this, and I would revert to you. How do we address this?
Sure, thanks a lot. But for now, can you at least answer us as how many bits encryption does your hardware support?
So see, the capabilities are much. There are encryption bits that goes to 10,000 per second as well. I mean, it depends which way you architect and what is that you are looking at. It's a very, very high processing encryption technology solution that is being implemented across the organization. So it is mostly the requirements I have seen is much of a lower, I would say, numbers than what I have just mentioned it about.
Yeah, thanks,
Awesome.
Prakash. So, but let's connect separately. I mean, outside this.
Sure.
Last
Thank
question.
you.
It's almost 11:55. Gunjan Modi always asks great questions. So Gunjan, go ahead. You are the last one to ask.
Thanks, Vikas. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, PJ. Great session. Quick, you did talk about the PI, personal, PFI as well, PHI. Each regulator really focuses based on the industry. They say that, you're supposed to protect. My question is, let's say, as an organization, we have both PI as well as PFI. Which should take priority over encryption, or, irrespective of whether it's a PFI or PI, we should have a common level of controls implemented across these.
So needless to say, PII has mandatory. I mean, that anyway has to have this control enabled, and where all this PII data is residing, those data stores or those file servers need to be identified, and then respectively design the policy which around it, or configure the policy. So with our technology, it's just I would say, initial configuration. Policies are already in place, enabling you to just kind of get started from day one. with the initial configuration with the respect to the users, respect to the business teams that you want to give whitelist them, and then the legitimate users will be able to get their access for the data in clear, and rest all for them it will be data protected.
Perfect, perfect.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. Thanks for the great questions, guys. So let's start with Kahoot. We have 4 minutes. I would like to rush it quickly, guys. Go to kahoot.it and game pin is coming next. We will start.
These are much easy questions, Vikas. I think it's
those are very
question.
easy.
The people asking questions are way beyond from the CISP.
Absolutely. I mean, when I was preparing this, the question you sent, I was like, this is CISSP level questions, guys. Come on. Okay, guys, go ahead. 1044022. I will start as soon as the counter hits 100. We got to go a little fast, guys. I don't want to hold you every week, more than 12 o'clock. So let's get into it quickly. 75 people. There are 225 participants, I believe. Great turnout and great session overall. I see 100 now, 98, 99, 100. Okay, shall I start or give it 30 more seconds? Okay, I'm giving 30 more seconds, guys. I don't want you guys to miss. 1044022 is the game pin. And we are starting it now. 127. Okay, start. There are about 8 questions, I believe. And be aware, Pooja Bansal is there in the session. She has been winning last 2 quizzes. So first question on your screen, when you use the word dash, it means you are protecting your data from getting disclosed. The very first chapter of CISSP, Sean Harris' book, talks about it. Nobody should get it wrong, man. Come on, guys. Okay, so the answer is confidentiality. Still, some people got it wrong, but yeah, next one, let's try your luck. Let's see what the podium looks like. Anil Chopra from Delhi, Chetan from Mumbai, Pushkar Upkarji from Delhi chapter. Okay, guys, good going. Let's see the second question. The data dash is used to ensure confidentiality. Locking, deleting, encryption, backup. Five seconds to go. And the answer is on your screen now. Encryption. Great. Let's see the leaderboard now. Perfect. Perfect. New entrants. That's good. Let's move forward to the third question. Dash means the protection of data from modification by unknown users. All the 3 CIA are here. It is not the US CIA. Confidentiality, integrity, availability, authentication, non-repudiation. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's see. 83 integrity. So guys, if you are failing on this one, go do your CISM first. Okay, Anil Chopra, Chetan ji and Aishwarya Kumar. Awesome. Next question on your screen, guys. BYOK stands for bring your own Kesar Kasturi. I believe bring your office key, bring your own Kahoot, bring your own knowledge, bring your own key. What is the right answer? Kesar Kasturi, Delhi NCR chapter folks will understand what I'm talking about. The answer is bring your own key. That's what Ved has been talking about. Phenomenal concept. Leaderboard changes. Leaderboard changes now. Great. Anil stays on top. That's great. Next question. BYOK is used for. What is bring your own key is used for? Empowering customer to control their own keys in cloud environment. Empower customer to delegate control of keys. Both, none of these. Okay, so empower customer to control own keys in the cloud environment is the use case of BYOK. So Anil is still on top. Congrats, Anil. Let's see if you can hold it. Sixth question. Do the CISO need to ensure that the encrypted data and keys used should be kept in the same application, managed separately, kept in the database, given away to the world? What is the right answer? 5 seconds to go. So second option, manage separately, is the best answer over here. Let's see if this changes. No, Anil still on top. Awesome, Anil. Also, just couple of more questions to go. Data encryption without dash is insecure and incomplete. Intrusion detection, intrusion prevention, EDR, XDR. What is the right answer? Encryption key management, network management, risk assessment. Okay, 103 got it right. So encryption key management. Next question might change the leaderboard. Let's see. So right now it is okay. All good, all good. Next question is going to be tricky, guys, as always. Okay. Which workshop is Elite CISO conducting on Saturday, 5th of March? Is it a cyber insurance? Is it PCI DSS, AWS security, or zero trust architecture? The communication was already sent in all the Elite CISO WhatsApp groups, so you should get it right. Awesome. Cyber insurance is the workshop coming up on Saturday, 5th of March, 2 days from now. It's a great workshop, guys. If you want to attend, I will share the details. Let's see who the winner is. Pushkar got it. Oh, Pushkar is third. Okay. Second is Aishwarya. First, is it still Amit? Let's see. Awesome. Yeah, Anil Chopra. Great. Congratulations, guys. We will send you Amazon vouchers. That's wonderful. I'm going to end the Kahoot here now and let's get into the certificate. So guys, if you want to download your participation certificate, go to Elite CISO's website, click on events, upcoming events. You will come to this section. Click on CP certificate. Put your email address, put your full name, and the password to download the certificate is insurance. INSURANC, insurance, all in short. If you enter it, you will get your certificate in your email. Why insurance? Because on Thursday, we are coming up with this cyber insurance workshop, which is very important for CIOs and CISOs to understand how they can leverage cyber insurance as part of their defense strategy. It's a highly discounted session and will be delivered by Mr. TL Arunachalam from Bharat Reinsurance. He is industry veteran when it comes to cyber insurance practice. So if you want to attend this, go ahead, guys. Just click on register now and register for it. With this, the last thing that everybody is waiting for is the Wheel of Fortune. We will have two sets of Wheel of Fortune, one for everyone who registered. And second set will be only for the people who liked the LinkedIn post that we had posted for this session. OK, Alok, you are there in the session. I know. Can you please track the name? If your name comes, guys, go to the chat and say, yes, you are there in the session. And Alok, please track that. So this is the first one. I'm going for it now. We will have 4 sound bar as giveaway. OK, S. Shrikant from Tata Electronics. Mr. Shrikant, if you are there, go to the chat and say, yes, you are there. Now, out of 4, 1 is for the entire group. And then I'm going to delete it. And then I am going to paste only the people who liked the LinkedIn post. So these are the 91 people who liked the LinkedIn post. I have done some filtering for unnecessary folks who liked. So yeah, so there will be 3 giveaways for this Wheel of Fortune. And good luck, guys. You see, it is very less cluttered as compared to 227 people in the previous one. I'm spinning it now. There are 3 soundbar with subwoofer as a giveaway. Commander Sanjeev Singh. Commander Sanjeev Singh, I believe from Birlasoft. If you are there, go to the chat and say yes. Alok and Vyas, please keep tracking. Spinning it for the third one now. Rashmi Sharma, awesome. Rashmi from Delhi chapter. Rashmi, if you are there, go to the chat and say yes. And this is going to be the last one. Pankaj Khare, awesome. Awesome. Again from Delhi chapter. That's about it, guys. 3 winners for LinkedIn Wheel of Fortune, 1 from the all of the people who registered. That's about it. Let me look at the chat. Alok would have recorded everything. Alok is there. Awesome. Rashmi is there. I see. Perfect. The Prakash Yadav ji, the CP certificate passcode is insurance in small, right? Not in capital. Yeah, small. With this 11:06, sorry guys, we ran a little late. There's so many things to do and it was an interesting session. So we couldn't hold on to the question. I had to let it go. With that, thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for attending the session. Hope to see you guys next week on Thursday when we have. So apart from the workshop, as you know, every Thursday we conduct this session. So with Micro Focus, this is the last one in series. So go ahead and register for it as well. With this, thank you very much, Ved. Amazing session. Let's talk offline how we can have a larger workshop because it's very interesting topic. OK, thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining in. Bye for now.
Thanks, Vikas. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your time. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Vikas. Thanks.